Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. And today, my guest on the show is Chad King, who is the owner of Titan Capital Group. Chad cut his teeth out of college selling copiers for Xerox door to door, realizing that this wasn't a long term or a particularly great investment on his time. So he started studying people who are generationally wealthy. And that's where his epiphany happened. He decided to look for passive income opportunities within the real estate market. And today, Chad owns several companies in several different verticals. He's an accomplished investor and a business coach. And for his one big tip today, we're going to discuss how to use active income to generate passive income streams and to build long-term generational wealth for investors. So, really excited to have him on the show today. Chad, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Jeff. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I can't wait to talk shop with you.
Yeah, so I really want to dig into to this origin story, selling copiers door to door. It sounds like a great thing to do. Like right out of college. You
Yeah.
think to yourself, like, yeah, I can do that, right? But I'm just wondering, how was that experience for you, and how did that help shape where you decided to take your career to the next level as the opportunities presented themselves?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So, I think it builds a resiliency that a lot of people, I think door to door sales, everybody should be in it in some capacity at some point in their lives. Now it was the best job that I never wanted to do again. I will tell you that racket is tough, very much. It was commission only job too. So you start at the top of an office building and just kind of work your way down until you get booted out. Um, so that model is quite antiquated, but we still did it. And man, it teaches you a lot about just handling rejection, being able to build rapport with people that don't want you in there, like you're interrupting them in the middle of their workday. They're busy people, and being able to still build rapport, set appointments, and then teaching you to move from failure to failure without losing momentum, without losing that positive mental attitude. Some days were very, very difficult just to wake up every day knowing that you're just going to basically get kicked out of a bunch of places, excuse me. So, but it builds something to the form of resiliency that's going to pay off later on in other aspects of entrepreneurship that you need in other aspects of business as well. So, yeah, best job I never want to do again for sure.
So after you cut your teeth with that has dealing with the rejection, dealing with but also honing your pitch, right? Because that has got to be a life skill that has served you very well, especially as you started moving up. Because now you're learning how to deal with people, how to overcome objections, and basically how to reposition yourself. You've probably learned a skill pretty well that if you walk in with attitude A, like I'm going to be really forceful, and you see a person who's not going to be responsive to that, you learn how to shift gears pretty quickly and go with attitude B, and maybe butter them up with kindness, or just take a totally different tack. How did you then use that to get into the career that you have today?
Yeah, I think kind of what you're alluding to a lot is about emotional intelligence and also tactical empathy. And emotional intelligence is understanding like how other people can think and perceive situations, and tactical empathy is being able to put yourself in other people's shoes and see the situation how they see it. So like, if I'm walking in cold to a to a building or an office, like I have to put myself in that person's shoes that I'm interrupting their day. Like I need to be able to put myself in their perspective, right? So what you're asking is, how does that apply moving forward? Well, I'm in sales, and everybody's in sales in some way or another, whether you know it or not. If it doesn't say salesperson on your business card, it doesn't matter. You're in sales, right? Everything you want is a commission, and you need to learn how to and understand how to sell yourself, your products and your services. So, moving forward, I think being able to I buy a lot of properties directly from seller now. I mean, I've done over 500 real estate transactions. A good chunk of those were in the single family space, and now I buy a lot of apartment buildings, larger commercial real estate deals, and buying a lot of these homes that we would then fix and flip. We were buying them directly from the seller, and you have to be able to go into a person's house, and we're buying them at a discount, right? They're not marketing it and putting it out in a sign in the yard and trying to sell it for as much as possible. So if they're going to sell it at a discount, there has to be a reason why. And being able to ask great questions and being able to uncover motivation requires you to be a great listener, and it requires you to have empathy for their situation, and then structure a win-win deal that they're willing to say yes to, and be able to have some good negotiation skills. So a lot of those tactics taught me a lot of that stuff that segued into my journey in real estate, and being able to buy properties at deep discounts that we could then, make a profit on, and also to help people too, because a lot of the people that we would buy properties from, mainly in the single family space, a lot of times they were in some form of distress. So being able to help them out of a situation is always amazing, in addition to being able to make money. So having those conversations, I think, is the biggest takeaway, and being able to have them.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. The tactical empathy, I think is the real keyword here, because being able to understand, exactly what's going on and respond to that is a really great life skill. And it really does help, not only in sales, but just any type of relationship that you're going to move forward with. You really need to be able to read that person in order to respond correctly. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course, absolutely.
I want to switch gears here for a minute and talk a little bit about your one big tip, which is geared around, in your case specifically, buying real estate, holding on to it, and creating an asset that generates wealth for you going forward, not just something that you buy and sell, as like a one time deal, but but an asset you can build and hold on to. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how that works in your space, and a little bit about what you teach, in your masterminds when you're explaining these concepts, and how people can put that to good use as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think at the basis of my one big tip, using active income to generate passive income streams, is ultimately a path that, if you want to retire early, is something that you're going to have to do. And what I learned was, through fixing and flipping houses and wholesaling houses, um, we were making a lot of active income, but it was very, very transactional. So once we did a deal, like, we would have to go out and do another one. And then once we had a big year and flip, 150 houses, we would have to go out and flip another 150. So it was a very transactional business, and there was no end in sight. When you get into real estate, and some people hear real estate investor, they think, fix and flipper. Well, technically, it's a high paying job. And if you don't eventually take that active income, because active income is very, very important. So I'm not telling, W-2 people to go quit their job, or anybody who's, making active income. It's very important. But ultimately, taking that money and then putting it into assets that produce income for you, and AKA getting your money to multiply, is ultimately going to allow you to achieve financial freedom, to get out of the rat race, to retire early, and then to have generational wealth and legacy wealth for your family that you can actually pass down, that produces cash flow every single month. So we take the money we make from our active businesses, the coaching, consulting, the masterminds, flipping, wholesaling, all that active income. We don't even touch it. It goes straight into purchasing these commercial real estate deals. And the commercial real estate deals are structured a bunch of different ways. We've done larger syndications with $10 million properties, up, and we bought smaller apartment complexes. But the gist is that you buy these buildings, the tenants pay down the debt, the tenants cover the expenses, and then what's left over is the cash flow. And if you buy enough buildings, you then acquire enough cash flow to cover your expenses, and then you just keep scaling and growing.
I love that example of the way you described it. I did something a little, I mean, not in the real estate space, but when I was building up my own digital marketing agency, I was still employed. I was still a W-2 employee, right? And what would happen was, at least in my case, I was never challenged at work from my, 9 to 6.
Mm.
And what I needed to do was to find some kind of other creative outlet in order to, just in terms to keep my head going,
Hmm.
and what started out as money I can take my wife out for dinner, into something like, hey, I can actually build something with some recurring income going on over here. And one of the things I did is that I took the money that I was earning as an employee, also some of the time that I was spending there, and actually applying it towards my business, until the final time I finally got fired, and I was like, something, I don't need these jobs anymore.
Yeah.
I may move on, and actually start building it for myself. And I think one of the scariest things was that, especially when you come out of that situation, is there is a certain degree of comfort of getting a salary every 2 weeks, or
Mhm.
however it is for you.
Mhm.
And what happens is that you really need to shift your minds to be able to accept not only the higher risk, but the higher rewards that you get as well. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, about how you help people shift that mindset from using like you said, the active income that they get for the activities that they're generating today, and to evaluate the risk of going into transactions that maybe they're not 100% about. Maybe they need someone else to go in and teach them the ropes on how to do it. How do you how do you describe that to people and help them evaluate risk in order to make these bigger transactions?
Sure. So what I love what you alluded to, and I don't want to skip past it, but the comfort that you were mentioning that a lot of people feel in that W-2, yeah, it's good, but it can also be a little bit of a trap, and it can also be a little bit of a safety net that allows you that keeps you in that same zone. And discomfort is actually your friend, and it's a signal for growth. So if you're finding that the places that you're going or the situations you're putting yourself in, maybe it's taking a big chunk of money and putting it down on an asset is maybe really, really uncomfortable. Number one, it may be a sign you're doing a bad deal, but number two, it may be a sign that you're really growing, and that's something that you need to lean into. And we're taught from a very young age to, don't take risks. I mean, stay comfortable, but it's a lot different in this space being an entrepreneur. To answer your question, when we help people to buy multifamily apartment complexes, we have a mastermind group. And the one thing that I'd recommend, it was a mistake that I made getting into real estate, was not immediately hiring a coach or a mentor. People look at coaching and mentorship as an expense, and they should look at it as an investment. It actually is one of the best investments you'll make in the space, far better than any piece of real estate that you'll buy, is coaching and mentorship from the right people. Because not only is it going to help you accelerate your growth in the space, but it can help people avoid, potential six-figure potholes from doing a bad deal. I have a saying in our coaching group. It's called, it's better to buy no deal than a bad deal, because a bad deal can put you way behind the eight ball. So having experienced operators like myself and my business partners help guide people through transactions and how to underwrite deals and how to trust the numbers on a deal. That type of situation is something I highly recommend anybody gets into before they go ahead and take the leap into buying, something like a piece of commercial real estate. Is make sure you have a coach and mentor that's guiding you through that process and doing it the correct way.
I love how you describe that, because a lot of the things that I taught myself how to figure out, right? Like how to, teaching myself how to run a business, teaching myself how to implement processes, teaching myself how to hire, virtual assistants and other specialists in order to help me propel uh, what I needed to get done. The coaching part is so key, because what a lot of people don't figure out, or at least don't figure out at first, is how much is my time worth? How much is my per hour? How much, or how much is my per day worth? And if you're going to spend 4 hours of your day trying to move a logo from here to there,
Mm.
right? And when it can be better spent hiring somebody to just do that for you, or hiring someone to help navigate, like what are the taxes that are involved with a particular property deal, or what are the things to look for before you go and buy, right? I think that's key. And when you do go down that mentorship route, you're right. You do need to find the right one, because there are a lot of them out there that, maybe they do or they don't have, the correct experience, that you're looking for. I actually had a friend a couple of months ago who came in from outside the U.S. to take a Grant Cardone training. And what was interesting about it was, at least to me, it was immediately apparent that he picked the wrong training. Not only because I think that the Grant Cardone training is, it's geared towards a specific type of person, which I know this friend is not, but also it didn't mesh with his personality. It
Hmm.
wasn't something I would be able to latch onto. And then being able to guide him at least in the right direction of focusing what is the correct way to find and hire a coach, I think is key. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I was wondering if you could take a minute and just to close out this conversation, just tell us a little bit about where people can find you and how they can reach out to you directly if they want to learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. So my link is for the coaching and mastermind program is right there, sevenfiguremultifamily.com. That mastermind it's geared toward teaching people how to buy commercial real estate. And just like I mentioned before, kind of everything that I told you about coaching and mentorship is in that. I'm still in the weeds doing this. I'm buying properties every single quarter. I'm buying assets, put out 2 LOIs today. So I am still doing this business very, very actively. I'm not just a coach. I also invest heavily in coaching and mentorship myself. I have 7 coaches. I've invested last year over 6 figures into myself in the coaching and mentorship space. I think that's very important to mention because I'm not a guy who just did a bunch of stuff and now is kind of sitting on an ivory tower trying to teach others how to do it. I'm still in the weeds with everybody. We're in crazy market cycles right now. We're in a very high peak, what I believe. And we're helping our members navigate through the market cycle that we're in, pairing it up with the right debt, doing all sorts of things that are going to help people, to buy good deals and be able to last through a potential recession, a potential market trough. So that's the coaching company right there. You can find out more information about me. You can also get me on Facebook at Chad King, follow me on Instagram at Mr. Chad King. But if you submit an inquiry or are interested in the coaching program, hit up that website and it's got more information there for you. And we put out a ton of free information on our podcast, Multifamily Live, too.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. That's been really great. Chad, thank you for joining me today. This has
Of
been a
course.
lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to speak with the audience, and I really appreciate all the value that you dropped today.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I had a good time. Thank you.